This video is about one of the scariest stories I have ever read. It was taken from the diary of a seafarer named Andrea. The diary was found inside cabin room 4466, several days after she disappeared from the cruise ship MV Sagrada Marina. No one ever saw her alive again. Inside the diary were 4 forbidden rules that they broke, and breaking those rules may have been the reason they died. After watching this video, you might never want to become a seafarer again. But before we begin the story, if you love mysteries and unexplained supernatural events, you're in the right place. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Give that like button a little love too. And please share this video with your family, your friends, your dog, your cat, your neighbors, and that guy sitting beside you doing absolutely nothing. All right, let's begin Andrea's story. My name is Andrea. I'm 26 years old, and I was a barista in Manila. I had always dreamed of saving enough money to leave the country and help my family, but I never expected that something would drag me toward hell in the middle of the ocean. This is the story of my nightmare while working at sea. I applied for the job with my best friend, Lane, who had been my childhood friend. We were incredibly happy when we were accepted as crew members on a cruise ship. Good salary, a new life, a fresh start. But everything changed during our final interview. Our manager, Ms. Norlet, looked like she hadn't slept in days. She was pale, and there was something strangely sad in her eyes. "Welcome to the team, girls," Ms. Norlet said. "But before you begin your training," she paused. "There are 5 rules you must never break." She said it without a trace of emotion. At first, we assumed they were just standard procedures, but when I asked her why these rules were necessary, she didn't answer right away. She simply stared at us. It felt like she was trying to figure out whether we would survive long enough to finish the contract. Then, she finally gave us the rules. Rule number 1. Under no circumstances should you open the locker with the red paint. Rule number 2. Stay away from the deck. Do not go near the water. And never look into the water, no matter whose voice you hear calling for you. Rule number 3. At 1 a.m., stay inside your cabin. Do not go outside for any reason, even if someone knocks on your door. Rule number 4. Whatever happens, never go down to the storage room alone. "Okay, ma'am," Lane and I answered. But as soon as we walked out of the office, we looked at each other and started laughing. We didn't take the rules seriously. We should have. Our first day on the ship, and the day finally came. It was our first time stepping onto the ship, and we were incredibly excited. We were going to Europe, and the best part? Lane and I were roommates. We were sharing the same cabin, so I didn't have to worry about adjusting to a stranger. Rule number 1. Under no circumstances should you open the locker with the red paint. When we arrived at our cabin, room 4466, I even joked, "Thank God it's not 4666. We both laughed. But when we entered the cabin, the first thing we noticed was an old locker. There was a huge red X across the middle, but it didn't look like it had been painted with a brush. It looked like someone had smeared it across the locker with their bare hand. At the bottom of the locker door was thick rust, almost as if something had been leaking out from inside. "Holy crap! Are they actually serious about this?" Lane laughed. We decided to ignore the locker. After our shift, we went straight to bed. We were too exhausted to even change. It was already around 10 at night. We fell asleep almost immediately. But that night, we heard a knock. Both of us immediately looked toward the door. "Andrea, did you hear that?" Lane asked. "Yeah, maybe it's just the waves," I replied. But the knocking didn't stop. I slowly approached the door. Then I realized something. The sound wasn't coming from the door. It was coming from the locker. I jumped backward in shock and fell. I was so terrified that I jumped onto Lane's bed. We both stared at the locker. Then we noticed something strange. The knocking had a pattern. And then something spoke from inside. "Please, open it. I want to get out." The voice was weak, broken, almost as if the person speaking had no breath left. Lane and I looked at each other. Neither of us could move. After more than 30 seconds, bang! Something slammed against the locker door from the inside. It sounded like something had kicked it. We were terrified, exhausted. Eventually, we fell asleep while holding on to each other. The next morning, while we were in the cafeteria, we noticed an elderly crew member staring at us. He looked worried. Eventually, he walked over. "How was your first night?" Neither of us could answer. Maybe it was the trauma, but eventually, he said, "Don't worry about it. You'll get used to it. You can even talk to it if you want." He paused. "But whatever you do, never open the locker." Then he quickly walked away without giving us any explanation. That's when we remembered the rules. We hadn't taken them seriously when we first heard them. Now, we were starting to understand. Rule number 2, stay away from the deck. Never go near the water and never look into it, no matter whose voice you hear calling for you. But we were crew members. When we were assigned something, we had to do it. That night, I was assigned to deliver linens to the deck. Lane came with me because I was afraid. The area was completely quiet. All we could hear was the wind and the waves. But then, in the distance, we saw what looked like a woman floating on the surface of the ocean. She appeared unconscious. She was wearing a white uniform. She had long white hair, and something was wrong. The water around her wasn't moving. Even the wind suddenly seemed to disappear. "Hey, Lane," I nudged her. "Do you see that?" "Yes." She stared at the woman. "Don't go near her." As we watched, the woman slowly began to sink beneath the surface. It looked as though something was pulling her down. We immediately turned and ran. But suddenly, we heard someone screaming from the side of the ship, from the water. "Don't run! Help me! I'm drowning!" It was the voice of a little boy, and it was coming from the ocean. Lane and I immediately ran back toward the railing. We had completely forgotten the rules. Again, we heard the voice. "Help me, please!" Lane looked over the railing. "Don't!" I screamed. But it was too late. She froze. "Andrea." Her voice trembled. "This isn't normal." I looked into the water. It was a child's leg kicking beneath the surface, but the body wasn't moving with the waves. Then suddenly, hands began appearing from the water. Dozens of children's hands. But there were no heads, no bodies, just hands, sticking out of the ocean. Then, all at once, they stopped moving, and every single one of them turned toward us. I grabbed Lane's arm and tried pulling her away, but she wouldn't move. Then I looked at her other arm. A child was holding on to her from the other side of the railing. I felt my entire body go cold. I started screaming for help. Then a crew member spotted us. "Hey, it's late. What are you doing out here?" Suddenly, Lane's body became lighter. I pulled her away from the railing, and we both fell to the floor. Lane seemed to have passed out for a moment. When we stood up, she couldn't remember anything. She just stared blankly ahead. The crew member helped us back to our cabin. While we were walking, he asked, "So, you're the two new staff members. Didn't anyone warn you about the rules here?" I couldn't speak. My heart was still pounding so hard, it felt like my chest was going to explode. When we reached our cabin, I immediately laid Lane on her bed. I closed the door. But before the crew member left, I noticed something. He was staring at our locker, as if he had never seen it before. Rule number 3. At 1 a.m., stay inside your cabin. Do not go outside for anyone. 1 week after the incident on the deck. At exactly 12:55 a.m., Lane made a terrible mistake. She said she had left her ID in the laundry area. She insisted on going back for it. She was unbelievably stubborn. We even argued. "Lane, forget it. Get it tomorrow." "It's okay. I'll only be a minute, I promise." Because she couldn't remember what happened the previous week, she wasn't afraid anymore. But I remembered. I had seen that child holding on to her. I was terrified of this ship. I couldn't wait to go home. Even though we were arguing, Lane still walked out. I followed her to the door. You know that feeling when a hallway is brightly lit, but somehow it doesn't feel like a place meant for humans anymore? That's what it felt like. "See? Nothing's happening." She had only taken about 10 steps down the hallway when suddenly the power went out. The hallway went completely dark, but strangely, the light inside our cabin remained on. I screamed, "Lane, come back!" No answer. Then I heard something. Heavy footsteps running toward our cabin. I panicked. I slammed the door shut and locked it. "Lane!" I kept calling her name. Nothing. But I knew someone was standing outside my door. Then the emergency lights came on. They were red. I could see the red glow through the peephole. And beneath the door, there were shadows. There were footsteps moving throughout the hallway. But they didn't sound human. It sounded like hundreds of claws scraping against the floor. Then I heard Lane. "Andrea? Andrea? There's someone with me." I gathered the courage to look through the peephole. Lane wasn't there, but something was moving. Something was slowly approaching my door. Then I smelled something, like rotten eggs mixed with the smell of blood. My breathing became faster, and then I saw it. A demonic-looking man with a rotting body hanging upside down from the ceiling. He was staring directly at me through the peephole. We locked eyes.
"Why don't you open the door? Let me in!"
And then I passed out. The next morning, I woke up to a loud bang against our door. I was lying on the floor. Had someone hit me? Had I fainted? I still remembered what I had seen through the door. I didn't want to open it. But eventually, I forced myself to look through the peephole. It was my manager. Several security officers were standing outside. Slowly, I opened the door. I immediately told them what had happened the night before, but their reaction was strange. They didn't seem surprised at all. It was as if this was completely normal. Rule number 4. Whatever happens, Never go down to the storage room alone. I spent the entire day searching for Lane. As evening approached, an announcement came over the ship's speakers. Crew to muster check. Missing personnel. Lane Ramirez. I couldn't think straight anymore. Without realizing it, I found myself on the lower level, standing outside the storage room. The door was open. I thought maybe Lane had wandered inside. Slowly, I entered. I called her name. It was incredibly dark. My flashlight barely illuminated the room. Then I reached the end of the storage area, and I froze. Because there it was, our cabin door, room 4466, and it was open. The entire area smelled like rust and something that smelled like blood. And inside was the locker. The locker with the red paint. It was knocking over and over. Faster and more desperate. Then suddenly, it stopped. Everything became silent. I slowly began backing away. Then, the locker door slowly started to open, just a little, until I saw something looking through the opening. An eye. But it wasn't a human eye. It was completely black, like the eye of a demon. Then I heard Lane's voice. "Andrea, help me." But something was wrong. The voice didn't sound normal. It sounded like two voices layered together. Lane's voice and the voice of a demon. I immediately turned and ran toward the exit, but suddenly, something grabbed my leg from underneath the floor. I looked down. A woman's hand. Her flesh was rotting, and she was gripping my leg. "You can't leave yet." I kicked the hand away. Somehow, I escaped. I ran out of the storage room crying and hysterical, and I never looked back. The witness. Testimony of the security officer who found Andrea's body. I heard someone screaming from inside the storage room. Even though we had been strictly instructed never to enter the storage room alone, I decided to take a look. I thought someone might need help. When I looked inside, I saw Andrea on the floor. She was convulsing, struggling, screaming. I wanted to go inside and help her, but I couldn't move. I was too terrified because I realized she wasn't alone. There was a man with a rotting body lying on top of her, and he was trying to force his way into her mouth.